Now, we want to look at the internal political developments here inside the U.S. for a couple of minutes. The results of Super Tuesday, well, we've mentioned them before. What it shows is that there may be no way for Romney to receive an absolute majority of the votes at the Republican National Convention, which meets in Tampa, Florida, at the end of the summer. He needs 1144. He's got 350 at the present time. If he wants to take the nomination, he's got to get an absolute majority of the delegate votes. Now, the trick is, if nobody gets an absolute majority of the delegate votes on the first ballot, then the delegates are no longer pledged. Right now, the delegates are being chosen through primaries and caucuses. They are then bound to vote for one candidate or another, unless they're running uncommitted. There are such things as uncommitted slates, too. But failing uncommitted, if you're pledged to a candidate, you've got to vote for that candidate on the first ballot, but only on the first ballot. After that, if there's no absolute majority, if there's a second ballot, you can vote for whoever you want, meaning whoever bribes you, whoever blackmails you, whatever it is. So that's, of course, the moment where we've been saying for a couple of years now, that's when the banking establishment, the Wall Street power cartel, could pull a rabbit out of a hat in the form of somebody like General Petraeus saying, since the parties are now in such chaos and disarray, and that's really what the Republican primary season has shown, the Republican Party is now completely Weimarized, right? It's no longer the Republican Party that we're familiar with the very orderly rules of hierarchical succession and a kind of a royalist, legitimist principle. That's all out the window. Now it's chaos. We've got these wild swings of voters, Tea Party fanatics, religious fundamentalists, warmongers, the money people, the libertarians, all of them a complete zoo. Somebody will say, well, you can't break a strike wave based on that. You can't impose austerity based on that. We need something more powerful, like the army and the intelligence community. Who can represent those? Petraeus, the Bonapartist candidate. So that's quite possible. We'll be back with more on that in just a minute. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. We're offering Ron Paul the best way to give new meaning to his faltering presidential campaign by making the centerpiece of everything he does the Walter Jones resolution warning Obama, if you start a new war without a congressional declaration of war, you will be impeached. That's something with some guts. I get tweets from people saying, what do you expect? He doesn't have time to do that. I'm sorry. If you don't have time to defend the Constitution to stop World War III, I don't know what the purpose of a presidential campaign is, because it certainly can't be to win the nomination or even to get a significant number of delegates. Now, the way that this works, therefore, is, as of now, it is unsure, it is actually rather dubious that Romney can get the absolute majority he needs. This is where the Romney-Ron Paul alliance comes in. Imagine this, pledging your convention votes to a Wall Street parasite and a warmonger. Remember, Romney wants 100,000 more troops. He wants a 300-ship Navy. He wants to build 15 warships per year. He wants to increase the percentage of the GDP that goes into the defense budget, and so forth. And the idea is Romney started, he knew that he was a weak candidate. He had a left wing in the form of Huntsman, his cousin, another Mormon, in this case, billionaire family. And then he had his right wing auxiliary, which is Ron Paul. So whoever gets delegates, right, those delegates would then go to Romney in Tampa. The only problem is Ron Paul is getting so few delegates that this deal seems to be breaking down. Now let's take a look at this. Where's the proof? Well, here's an example. The proof is obviously what you see in every debate. The proof is Ron Paul defending Romney on the charge of being an asset stripper in the South Carolina campaign. The proof is Ron Paul cooperating with Romney to get off the hook for a debate in Georgia on March 1st, which would have helped Gingrich. Ron Paul constantly attacking Santorum, very seldom attacking Romney, and just doing these pro forma things like flip-flopper. To call Romney a flip-flopper is like saying Hitler mistreated his dog. It's a way of saying something good about somebody while pretending to say something bad. See the essay by Paolo Sarpi, the report to the Venetian Senate back in the early 1600s, in the book that I've written about that. The Ron Paul PAC is called Endorse Liberty. Ron Paul's Super PAC, Endorse Liberty. Interestingly, it's based in Salt Lake City, Utah. Salt Lake City, Utah, the Mecca of the Mormons, the world center of Mormonism, is where Ron Paul decides to have his Super PAC, or his supporters decide to have his Super PAC. So his supporters think that Salt Lake City is a good place to have it, right? Convenient. Maybe they control the local judges. Maybe they control the state apparatus, right? If there's even a federal case, if the jury is from there, well, maybe that's a help. All kinds of reasons to do this. This is where Peter Thiel of the Bilderberger Steering Committee has, according to published reports, poured in $2.7 million, I believe, into the Ron Paul campaign. That's from the Bilderberger Steering Committee. And it turns out that, according to published reports, Lad Christensen is the partner of Huntsman's father. Huntsman's father has this chemical company. There's another company called Christensen Huntsman, and that Lad Christensen, is one of the founders of the Endorse Liberty Super PAC. So you got to understand, Huntsman and Romney are cousins. They're all interrelated, intermarried with the Marriott family. Romney is Willard because of Willard Marriott. This is a tightly knit group. It's a kind of a Freemasonic fraternity. Ron Paul can understand that quite well. So this is where the money was coming from. Now, the idea was that this was supposed to mean that Ron Paul, suppose he could win a state like North Dakota or Idaho or Alaska, those would maybe be delegates that the establishmentarian Wall Street tycoon Romney couldn't get, but Ron Paul could get them among the libertarians. The problem is that has not panned out. Ron Paul has done extremely poorly in this regard. So now we have, I think, reflecting that, the head of Endorse Liberty, Abe Niederhauser of Endorse Liberty Super PAC, says this week, maybe speaking from Salt Lake City, Utah, that they're not going to put so much money into the Ron Paul campaign, and that's some of that is the Peter Thiel money from the Bilderberger circles. And the idea is that Ron Paul's not in a position to deliver anything. He can't get enough delegate votes to be able to deliver them. Now, that could change. We're told that there's a long march, capillary effort going on. But you see the idea. It is a synergy. There is an alliance. There is a collaboration here. And if you're out there sweating blood and giving your pittance and sacrificing for this, I have to ask you, what do you think you're doing? Take a look at consortiumnews.com. Consortiumnews.com. That's the Robert Parry site. Remember Robert Parry, Newsweek, wrote about Iran-Contra, wrote about other things, anti-Bush Cheney, kind of a fairly decent left lib. Couple of articles there about that. If you want to get those links, go to the Webster G. Tarpley Twitter feed, and you'll see there's a link that I have in one of those tweets in the past week, which is a description of what I've just said. In other words, this information that I'm telling you about the Endorsed Liberty Super PAC, Salt Lake City, Utah, and so forth, that's from the Robert Parry Consortiumnews.com website. So we have all of that. Romney, of course, the biggest warmonger, saber rattling at AIPAC, and that's what you're going to support. You're going to put that guy over the top. He's demanding all kinds of actions to stop the presumably non-existent or rudimentary Iranian nuclear weapons program. So people say, oh, who should I vote for? If I'm a Republican, who should I vote for? As if it's up to me to say this. I don't give advice to the lovelorn. I don't give gardening tips. If you're a Republican, the first thing you need to do is stop being one. Deregister. After 8 years of Mad Dog Bush and Cheney and the neocons and war, you're still a Republican? Are we crazy? Get out of that party. And then we'll tell you what to do in the next segment. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. So, if you're now a Ron Paul supporter in the Republican Party, get out of the Republican Party. How can you be a Republican at this point? And what should you do? Well, there's something called mass struggle, and people said to me, what's mass struggle? Well, mass struggle is when you mobilize large masses of people to fight for certain results. It is not prepackaged. It's not as simple as going to a voting booth and pulling the lever. It's not even as simple. It's even more complicated than going to a primary and staying there, a caucus, and staying at the caucus for a couple of hours. Mass struggle looks more like this. We have the fascist Governor Snyder, the Republicano-fascist governor of Michigan. And in addition to his policy of raising taxes on the poor while cutting taxes on the rich, he has this emergency management law. The emergency managers, I would say commissars or Gauleiter, that he wants to impose on different localities in Detroit. And it's all up to him. He can say tomorrow, the city of Detroit is in an emergency. I'm sending in a commissar to run the place. The mayor and the city council are out. They have no more power. I will rule by decree using my viceroy, my satrap, my commissar Gauleiter that I'm sending in to Detroit. Now, there is a recall Snyder, oust him on the model of the the Wisconsin oust Walker. You can find that at Michigan Rising. But we've also just had in the past week or so approximately 200,000 signatures to get a vote on the abrogation, the rescinding of this fascist law that Snyder has been using. There are emergency managers in Flint, Ecorse, I think it is, Benton Harbor, and Pontiac. And the state has also seized control of the Detroit and Highland Park school districts. This is creeping fascism. And I know some people, they're looking at the TSA groped me, or Obama claims that he can kill people. These are all very serious things. But if you want to see the mass front where fascism is actually marching in the United States, out front, in the open, every day, it is stuff like this. It's Walker's union busting. It's the dictatorial ambitions of Snyder, who wants to become the little Mussolini of Detroit, right? The little Duce of Detroit. It's what's going on with the union busting of Mitch Daniels in Indiana, where he has essentially rammed through a so-called right-to-work union busting law, meaning that unionism in Indiana is essentially washed up for the moment, although I'm sure people will put up a gallant fight. And we've had at least one victory, the defeat of the despicable fascist Kasich in Ohio, 61-39, the best thing that happened in the elections in last year, in November 2011, the defeat of the fascist union-busting plan of Kasich in Ohio, and he's now a lame duck. He's basically, his governorship is ruined. So the groups involved here are Stand Up for Democracy with a 4, and it's to stop Snyder from putting an emergency manager into Detroit, right, which would then complete the destruction of one of the great cities of the United States. And it would also mean those factories in Detroit are needed to lift the world, right? We know what to do. I know what to do with those factories. Those factories are a key part of a strategy to lifting the world out of poverty, misery, backwardness, and so forth. And it's good that we still have them, and I don't care how it was done, and I don't care who did it, but we lost quite a few. We didn't need to lose those. We can thank Obama for the ones we lost. So this is where you should become engaged. Now, it's not just Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, and these other places. This is going on all over the place. There's something similar in Kansas. There's the fight against the fascist governor in Maine who purged that mural, and so forth. And, of course, it's not limited to Republicans. We want to fight against Jerry Brown's austerity. We want to fight against Cuomo's austerity. This is the front. But notice that if you were with Ron Paul, you've put yourself on the wrong side of it. You put yourself on the union-busting side, the scab side. I'm sorry, but there's no other word for it. National right to life, national right to work legislation means universal union busting, universal scabbing, and we don't want it. And don't tell me about liberty. Don't tell me about your freedom agenda. The biggest single barrier to fascist dictatorship and totalitarian rule is the continued existence of a trade union movement. Not by chance. When Hitler and Mussolini came in, the first thing they did, was to destroy trade unions. First thing they did. And then they went on to impose killer, genocidal austerity. According to various sources, the Italian fascists were able to cut the average standard of living and prevailing wage by about 60% over about 10 years. And in Germany, it was 40% over a shorter time span. That's the essence of fascism. Killer austerity, genocidal, brutal, primitive austerity is the be-all and end-all of fascism. The busting of the unions and the lowering of the standard of living is why the ruling class pays and supports and tolerates fascism coming in. So there it is. So that's the struggle. That's going to be the struggle of the time ahead of us. Now, this is therefore what I recommend. Now, beware Petraeus in Tampa. Now let's look at the pathos of Obama. Obama has been arguing the theory of presidential impotence this week, that there's nothing the president can do to control the price of gasoline. And in this, as we've seen, he joins Fox News as of the vintage programs of Fox News of the summer of 2008, when the price of oil was at $150 a barrel. The Fox News commentators were on there using the same arguments as Obama. There's nothing the president can do to affect oil prices. Well, I'm sorry. There's plenty. Get some executive orders. Call in this guy, Gary Gensler of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. We've even had Bernie Sanders, senator from Vermont, on television this week, at least talking some of these points. You can impose 100% margin on all speculators. That slows them down. You can limit them to buying and selling real barrels of oil, not virtual barrels. You can ban the virtual barrels, the paper barrels, the non-existent barrels that are only used to drive up the price. You can impose, and you must impose, according to law, according to Dodd-Frank, the CFTC, Commodity Futures Trading Commission, should have already imposed position limits. And they're talking about a 25% position limit. Well, 25% is practically a corner, isn't it, on such a market? Let's get that down to 5%, boys, or maybe 3%, that the biggest share of the entire oil market at any given time is 5% or 3%. No virtual barrels, Watch out for the London ICE exchange. Distinguish between hedgers, users, and speculators. We'll be back in a minute.